his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi. Here you see a map of that area. If you're looking at the Sea of Galilee, they're going almost straight north from there, a distance of somewhere between 38 and 40 miles they would have traveled to get up to Caesarea Philippi. Again, probably by foot. They probably didn't ride anywhere. So it's a pretty good distance, and that way is very hilly. There are quite a few hills and even mountains on the other side of Caesarea Philippi. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they're traveling up this way, and this would be into an area that's heavily Gentile now. Jesus had been on the western side of the Sea of Galilee and some on the eastern, but most of his work has been done among Jews. We've seen him interact with the Syrophoenician woman, for instance, in the last lesson up in Tyre. But here he's going back again to an area that's would be highly Grecianized, Greco-Roman, and you see that in some of the pictures that I'll be sharing with you. This section is titled in our lesson, "The Strength and Weakness of Peter." When they're going along the road, we're going to see some of Peter's strength here. They're going to Caesarea Philippi, which you see pictured there. And Jesus asked his disciples, saying to them, "Who do men say that I am?" It's an interesting question at any time, but particularly because of the location where they were. Jesus has taken his disciples to an area that, when you tour this area today, the tour guide might tell you this was idolatry central back in the day. This particular cliff face that you're seeing there with the little niches that are carved into it and the big one below, these used to house idols, and idol worship was rampant all over this area. This particular area was regarded by many pagans as the birthplace of the god Pan, for instance. And so this was just a place where paganism was and idolatry were rife, just all over the place. And now Jesus is asking his disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" Knowing that he's going to get different responses. And they say, well, some say John the Baptist or Elijah or one of the prophets. Notice that none of them says, well, you're the god Pan or you're one of these idol gods. That's what humans believed in this area. But Jesus' disciples were more perceptive than that. And the people that Jesus had been working with largely and talking to were more perceptive than that. Some might have said he was John the Baptist, as Herod had said, maybe Elijah or one of the other prophets. Here's a better look at some of this area. Here's a spring and a stream that flows from this area. You see the cliff face there in the distance. Here's an artist's depiction of how the area might have looked in Jesus' day. There were temples that were erected right here for the worship of numerous idols. And the whole place was named after Caesar, of course, and he was worshipped there. The emperor was worshipped as a god in this place. So a lot of paganism going on, and it's here that the Apostle Peter will make the greatest confession that can be made, identifying Jesus as he truly is. Jesus says, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter responds, "You are the Christ." Matthew's account of this in Matthew 16 and verse 16, Peter says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." What a fascinating statement in this place where there were so many gods who weren't living, who'd never been living, who were just part of man's imagination. Yet Peter identifies Jesus Christ as the Son of the living God. You see Peter's strength, you see his perception. And in Matthew's account, of course, Jesus will say, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Peter understood this because God had showed it to him. Jesus, though, strictly warns them again that they should tell no one about him. This is in verse 30. It's not time for that yet. There'll be a time when he'll want them to tell far and wide exactly who he is. But that's not this time. Right now, he just wants them to recognize it, that no matter what the world might say about who God is, that they know that he is the Christ, the Son of God. In verse 31, he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke this word openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned around and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men." So we've just seen great perception on the part of the Apostle Peter, identifying Jesus as the Christ. And now all of a sudden, Peter lacks perception. He's not looking at things spiritually. Jesus has to rebuke him. Peter says, Peter rebukes Jesus at first, saying, no, you're not going to die in essence. This isn't going to happen to you. You're not going to be killed. But Jesus turns around, looks at his disciples, and knowing that they need to know what's going to happen to him, that they need to be fully aware of where this is all headed, he tells Peter to get behind him and says Satan, calls him as if the name. Peter was thinking with a worldly mind. He wasn't thinking about the mission of Jesus Christ. He didn't really understand what it was, no doubt, at this point. But Jesus had been trying to explain it to him. Peter didn't want it to be that way. Folks, there's no arguing with Christ. If we're going to follow him, it's his way. And whatever he says, although we may not understand it, we may not like it at first, we need to get our minds around to focus on his way and his words. Peter needed that on this occasion. You're not mindful of the things of God. You're not thinking straight. You're not seeing straight, is what Jesus tells him.